Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. This time out, we are joined by Michael Adams, product specialist from Waves DiGiGrid. Yeah. Thanks for coming in. I'll reach all the way over.
G'day, thank you.
Good to have you here. Thanks for making the trip to Fort Wayne.
It's always fun to come here.
So you've got a pretty cool little system running here with a couple of computers, a box, and this is all part of the DiGiGrid idea, right?
Yes, it is. What we're showing here, this is the DiGiGrid iOS.
Okay.
And what we're looking at is a advanced audio interface, 8 in, 8 out, built-in SoundGrid DSP server, so you can run up to about 200 plugins of DSP power on this. And also it's got the mic pre's from a DiGiGo ST7 console. So we're talking world-class preamps.
Right.
One of the really big deals here, though, is when it comes to latency, really low latency has always been in the realm of HD, HD native, and HDX, whereas now anybody with a native DAW can get great latency while they're recording real time with all their plugins. Our latency is 0.8 milliseconds round trip.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Let's come back and talk some more about the latency part of this, because that's very, very important.
Cool.
But let's step back, because I'm not sure everyone is familiar with what is DiGiGrid and where did it come from?
Good question. So DiGiGrid is a company made up of Waves, leading company for plugins in the world, and DiGiCo, one of the world's top makers and providers of digital consoles. And when we came together, we brought this, all of our creative power and technology together to come up with advanced audio interfaces that not only give people ultra low latency, but fill a gap in the market for DSP power for recording and also for live use, which we felt was missing a teeny weeny little bit. Okay. Low latency is very important, DSP power is very important, but also what we're doing is we've created a company that actually lets more companies come on board with SoundGrid technology to have their plugins available to the everyday studio user, whether it's somebody at home or somebody in live use.
Right. Now, what is the difference between SoundGrid and DiGiGrid?
SoundGrid is the technology. SoundGrid is Ethernet-based technology that we at Waves have created over the last 8 to 10 years. Effectively, it's the technology that lets us get audio from A to Z and back again in an incredibly short amount of time.
Okay.
And also involves all of the DSP power so that you can run all your plugins off your CPU, giving your computer a lot more space to breathe and run it on boxes like this. Or in the case of live sound, independent boxes like the SoundGrid Extreme server.
Okay. Now you've got, basically the computer is connected here. I see you have the Thunderbolt port connected. But you mentioned Ethernet before. What's happening there?
Right. So, well, obviously the new Macs don't actually have Ethernet ports anymore, but they do have Thunderbolt ports. So we support the $30 or so Thunderbolt adapter. So this box is plugged in to the Ethernet, the Thunderbolt port with an Ethernet connector straight into an Ethernet port on the back of the iOS. And that's the only connection. So if somebody buys a DiGiGrid iOS, they install the software, they reboot their computer, they plug this box in with Ethernet, and they're up and running.
You're good to go.
Yeah.
So there is a way then, even though there's no Ethernet on the current Macintoshes, for example, to still be able to connect this all up.
Absolutely,
yes,
and the other beautiful thing about this is it actually comes with a gigabit switch built in. So as you can see, we've actually got two computers side by side. They're both plugged into ports on the back of this same unit.
Okay.
And I'm going to be showing you in a few minutes how to stream. We're streaming audio from that one straight through the DAW into this one. So we can actually collaborate a lot easier these days and keep the latency down under 80 samples.
Right. Now that's a very important thing, and that is part of the beauty of one of these boxes, is that not only do you have the I/O for line level signals and for digital signals, but you've also got DSP power inside here for actually running Waves plugins, correct?
Yes, but not just Waves plugins, SoundGrid third-party plugins as well. For example, Plugin Alliance are incredibly near to coming on board. Probably beginning of the year, they're going to have their plugins available as SoundGrid DSP plugins as well.
Nice.
So one of the beautiful things about this for us is we're not trying to keep it as just a Waves platform. We want as many plugin companies as possible to jump on board, because what it does is it gives the advantage to the end user. When it comes to DSP, the more plugins you have that you can run on this DSP, the more advantage to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now you're showing this here. We've got Pro Tools running on both computers, but it'll work with pretty much any DAW that supports the plugin format.
Exactly.
Right?
Any DAW that is Core Audio or ASIO compatible, it'll work with. I mean, it's whether it's Reaper, Logic, Bitwig, Ableton, anything like that, then yes, it will run.
Great.
It's one of the beautiful things here is, especially when you look at this plugin here, which is called Studio Rack. Studio Rack is what you use inside your DAW to change your plugins over from local to DSP. But also on top of that, it gives you the advantage of being able to save a chain of up to 8 plugins as a chain and then move it from DAW to DAW cross-platform. So you can actually take a chain that you've created here for a vocal or drums or guitar and open it in Logic or Ableton or another DAW in another room or another country, and it'll open perfectly as long as you have the plugins.
Nice, nice. But it goes beyond that, because you can actually use those plugins during tracking, can't you?
Absolutely. Now, this is one of the key things here, other than 0.8 milliseconds of latency. 0.8 milliseconds of latency is great, but it comes into super great when you think about the fact that you can now, in native land, have the ability to record with all of your plugins active, real-time, and still keep that low latency. So if we actually look at Studio Rack here, you'll see that right now I'm in SoundGrid mode. And I can actually switch all of the Studio Racks in my session from local to SoundGrid mode with one switch just from one plugin instantiation, which is great. So let's make sure that they're all on SoundGrid mode right now. Now, when we're recording, it's in input mode. Now, in input mode, it actually bypasses the natural buffer of the DAW. So we're actually bypassing it and routing the audio through our software in the background so you can still hear exactly what's going on. All of your plugins are active. You've still got incredibly low latency. You don't have any slap back, and you get exactly what you want. And once you've pressed stop, it goes back into a mode that you can listen to it again.
Right. That's a tremendous advantage because there's no load on the computer.
None
You can run your
whatsoever.
buffer up at, say, 1024,
Yeah.
and you can run all of your instruments.
Exactly.
You have plenty of processing power, yet you still have real-time plugins that you can use during tracking. That's really
Exactly.
cool.
It's very, very exciting. I mean, and one of the things that, you know, to show you exactly how intense this is, right now, as I said, we've got it in SoundGrid mode. The CPU usage at the top is currently at between 25 and 28. I'm just going to take them all. I'm just going to put them all to local. And let's have a listen exactly how. There you go. Now we're up to about 60%. So if I press play, you know, I can just press play and then go, you know what, let's take them all back to SoundGrid. It's pretty amazing how much power you actually gain by taking all the plugins that you can and moving them off your CPU to a dedicated SoundGrid DSP server.
Right.
And it really lets your computer breathe.
Right, right. So when you say local, you mean it's running actually on the computer versus running in SoundGrid, which is on the box here.
So the computers are still installed on your computer. This is one of the things that we wanted to make very, very clear. So Studio Rack is on your computer. All the plugins that you've got are still on your computer. However, when you click SoundGrid in Studio Rack, they all get routed through here.
Nice.
Now, the beautiful thing about that is that, say, for example, you then want to take your laptop on the road, all the plugins are still installed here, and they're all still in native as well. So when you're not connected to one of these, they just go back to native mode. You can continue your mix working the way you want to,
Right.
and then when you're back, it'll connect back up again.
Right, right. So the obvious question that I'm sure you get asked all the time is, how many plugins can you run on one of these?
It's a very good question. Now, we've run a lot of bench tests. So say, for example, let's take Waves C4, which is a pretty intensive plugin.
Right.
We've got up to about 175 of those
Wow.
on one of these.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So plenty of DSP power there
Oh, yeah.
for whatever you're doing.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. I don't know many sessions where I've had that many plugins in the session
Right.
and it sounded any good at all.
Right. Now, is this, as far as you can take the system, can you expand it beyond this? Can you add more I/O? How does that work?
Great. So one of the great things about Ethernet technology, apart from the fact that it's off the shelf, is when it comes to expansion, it's very, very easy. So there are 4 ports on the back, so it's already a gigabit switch. So we have other devices that will be released that once they are released, you literally plug in an Ethernet cable, you plug it in, and then through the software which controls it all, which is called the SoundGrid Studio System, you have up to 8 different devices per computer that you can have and 8 different computers on the network. So if I add another device, then it will just show up here.
Okay.
So, and if I add more computers, they show up here. This is a good time to actually talk about networking and expansion. You'll see in the middle here with Rack B, with software I/O devices, I have 2 computers. I've got one that says on local, and then I've got the other one that says on. Now, the one that says on the right is actually this laptop
This computer over here.
and this is plugged into my iOS. Now, why would I want to do that? Simple reason is you've got a lot of times that people are collaborating on different parts of a song or different parts of projects in different DAWs or different computers in different areas. And plugging this in, I've actually got it set up so I can actually stream the tracks from that DAW into coinciding tracks in this DAW under 80 samples.
Wow.
Which is, great. So if I can ask you to press play
Sure.
on that one, yep, there they come up through there. So, and I've got them all spanned out through different channels, so I can actually prep it and get it ready for the mix on this end.
Right,
So you can press stop.
And you could apply the plugins from
Absolutely.
over here, and also be doing plug-in processing from here as
Absolutely,
well.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, if you need to. It's one of the beautiful things about this is its expandability is really simple. It's Ethernet technology. Just plug in an extra device with an extra Ethernet cable and you're up and running. It keeps the latency to an absolute minimum, which we're very excited about. But having the ability to record at really low latency in native land with all of your plugins is great. And then being able to share between DAWs, regardless of what DAW you're using, and make it a common platform is really exciting to us.
Right. So what kind of I/O complement do we have on the iOS box?
Okay, so we've got 8 preamps, 8 line in, 8 line out. The mic pre's out of this are straight out of a DiGiGrid SC7 console, incredibly high quality. You have full control over those out of the software, which is here, and you can control which ones have phantom and which ones don't, and also the gain of them. You also have SPDIF, you have AES, and you have MIDI in and out as well.
Nice. Nice. And can you separately address the headphones so you can have 2 mixes simultaneously from those? Nice.
Yes, you can. So if you go, let me just close the software here. This is the SoundGrid Studio System mixer. So you have, over here on the right, you have all of your mixes, and you can actually control both of these and have different sends going to both of these, but also create other mixes down there as well that go to separate headphone mixes.
Okay. So you have a lot of flexibility as far as routing goes, getting your signals in and out. You can stack these together to get more I/O if you need. So it's a very flexible
You can have
system.
up to 8 different I/Os connected in a chain and still keep that 0.8 milliseconds.
Now, is your target for this aimed more at someone with a home studio, a project studio, commercial studio, film score? Where are you really seeing this product ending up?
There's a lot of people who have gone past their little USB pocket interface and are looking to decide where they want to go next.
Right.
Whether they go to a full hardware PCI playback DSP system or what else they do. So there's a big gap there in the marketplace that we're trying to address. What this does is it gives people the ability to hold on to their native DAW without updating it and have something that's still core audio and ACO compliant, but also give them more power for DSP as well as networking capabilities and other things that they may not have thought that they might need, and expansion potential in the future. So we're trying to help people who are growing their studios, in one case, build it and still be able to build on top of that without replacing it. But there's also a lot of people who literally just need an extra I/O with really good preamps to replace something that's old. And get extra DSP. And then there are people who may be looking at being disillusioned with their current system and are in the film area who are looking for a box that actually will just replace everything that they've got. So there's many different areas for the iOS series that will be covered. We're very excited about the fact that it does work with absolutely any native DAW.
Mac or PC.
Mac or PC.
Right. And I think a really cool thing is that with the Ethernet, you can run a long cable, right?
Yes, you can.
So you could have this back in even in a home studio, you could have the I/O back in a closet or whatever with your other things that make noise and have acoustic noise to them and be recording right in the same room. So that's
Absolutely. We've done runs of up to about 300 feet.
Nice. Nice. And then for commercial studios, that's a big deal as well.
It is a big deal. And also, obviously, as you said, keeping it quiet is a really, really big thing. And having the ability to actually control things like sends to headphones, etc., from software so you don't actually need to tweak it, again, is something that we're very, very aware of.
Right, right. So something else I've heard of in association with this is DLS. Now, what is that, and how does that factor in with the DiGiGrid system?
Good question. So the DiGiGrid DLS and DLI are 2 separate interfaces. The DLS is like this. However, it's for users who have existing HD, HDX, and HD native systems. So it's for any system that has an existing DigiLink system or DigiLink IOs. So the DLS is a double rack and has built-in DSP for up to about 300 plugins. And the DLI is a single rack and has no built-in DSP. But both of those systems are for if you have HDIOs, Omnis, Bluefaces, Prisms, Auroras, Apogees, etc. And what they do is they help you expand your system so that if you're not going to HDX, we can give you DSP back again.
Right.
And also the ability to network your studio to other rooms so that you can actually access those IOs. So you could have one room send the control of the Blue Faces or HDIOs or Omnis to another room on the other end of the building,
Right.
all across Ethernet at 0.8 milliseconds of latency. The cool thing about this is the software which I showed you, Studio Rack, is nearly exactly the same regardless of which system you're working on, whether you're working on an Avid-based system or native DAW. There's a couple of small changes, but regardless of which one, the entire system stays the same. So your presets stay the same. So you can
Right.
work natively and then take it to a DLS system and everything will be the same.
So you guys really covered the full spectrum. All
We're
the way
trying to.
from just a straight plug into the computer all the way to an HDX rig.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very nice. That's wonderful. Thanks for coming in and explaining all this to us and giving us a little demo of how this works. Being able to have the multiple computers and all the flexibility with the I/O, that's a very powerful system before you even add the DSP on, which of course takes it to a whole other level.
Different level.
So very, very cool.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Michael.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute. I'm Mitch Gallagher.